ABSL Summit. Beyond Tomorrow. Building a Sustainable Future.
So the next panel discussion will be on the topic of will global workforce trends support the sustainability and resilient growth of our companies? And the moderator of this panel will be Sebastian. Welcome. And considering you were a bit shy in the previous panel and you didn't ask questions loudly, so we prepared a Menti survey for you. You will have a chance to ask your question. So we will not ask a question to you, you will be able to ask the question to the panelists. So prepare for that. So as well, welcome on the stage our panelists. Martijn Geerling, Managing Director at Hackett Group. Agnieszka Orszulak, Head of Daikin Europe Coordination Center. Bogumił Sobula, First Major of Katowice. And Hariharan Subramanian, HR Head at Aspire Systems.
Welcome, and I can tell you that I was finding many inspirations for my questions, even for the panel, during the previous sessions. One of them just presented about the data analytics and how you can use this data, probably one of those on the list. So also we encourage you to use the Menti to ask the questions. We'll just, after a few minutes, simply publish them on the screen. If you want to ask the question, we have some microphone for you to be gentlemen, helping you to have the great, to have a voice, just in case. And I think, and probably for many of us, the last 18 months, 12 months was the hell of an adventure. It was, many things changed. I also remember that, and by the way, we have also the translation to Polish and to English, because we have one of the panelists who will be speaking Polish for the session. And when you observe the stock market, like probably 12, 14 months ago, you probably noticed there was so many changes in the shares. Many companies simply didn't know what will happen, and they paused a lot of projects. I remember I was talking to my colleague from Accenture that their shares dropped by 20%. When I met him yesterday, he said, Sebastian, I'm so lucky, I'm so happy. Our shares not only back to the previous level, but they even grow by 20 and 30%. As you may expect, the whole thing in the global economy is that so many companies decided to start transformation, and they need skilled workforce to run the changes. Another example, I can tell you the story. I was talking to my colleagues. I'm running the tech business for Sabre, and I talked to many CEOs, and they said, Sebastian, this is interesting because we have prepared many presentations 2 years ago, 3 years ago, how we can transfer, automate, and do things in our business, and they were declined. People said, we have no money, we cannot invest. But you know what? They asked me 6 months ago, please show me the presentation. I got approval for my project in 1 day. So my question to you, because for me, at the moment, the thing which we all need, I think was mentioned by the gentleman from SAP, there is no company without people. And now to attract the talent to our companies and to the cities, probably as well, and let's try to consider the cities as an employer, it's probably very, very hard. I don't know, what you can notice from your perspective? And we have agreed, and the rules who are going first will be absolutely spontaneous.
Okay. Namaste, dzień dobry. First of all, I'm checking, am I talking to myself in front of a computer? Because it's been 2 years looking at people, all the time adjusting your camera, whether you're there, and then you and your connect is just a Zoom tile. So we've never felt that this is a blessing. We have always taken this for granted, that meeting people is okay and this is part of your job. But after 2 years, meeting 10 people in a room, yeah, it's a blessing, whatever may be the supreme power. So thanks for the opportunity. Looking at the talent, yeah, the type of talent has completely changed, like what they were talking about even today morning about Amazon. Reskilling and upskilling is really important. The kind of challenge that we have, or I would say as an opportunity, is that the demand is very, very high, and the quickness or fulfilling those demands are also really high, because, the market is coming up with a lot of startups, a lot of new organizations who will be able to fulfill those demands, in a very, very short span of time. And the expectations in terms of technology is booming really, and whether our people are really ready for it. So we are investing a lot of money on training, we are investing a lot of money on reskilling people and then getting them ready to meet the demands.
I think when the pandemic started, all the companies were operating in a kind of uncertainty, so we could see some stabilization. I mean, neither employees were willing to change, nor the companies took any decisions on growth. But what is going on right now, I think we are over that time. And if you even look at the latest reports, like 75 companies in our sector is planning to grow and is planning to add staff in the coming year or two. So that means that the competition for the talents is really growing. And now we can see it more for some functions. Of course, IT, that goes without saying. We know that over there the demand is huge, and the companies have to be very creative and innovative in attracting those talents. And actually, pandemic gave this opportunity, so we are more flexible in terms of recruiting people from different locations, activating the workforce in smaller towns. People who are not, for example, willing to relocate right now, the companies are open for this kind of recruitment. Cross borders, I think that we are also starting with that trend, although because of some taxations and legal issues, that's still somewhere where we are learning. But I think that the competition for the talents, yes, it's there and is picking up, and I guess we need to be very, very creative and innovative in attracting the talents to the organizations.
My question is because I think it's my observation, and when discussed the panel and the panelists, I said, yes, we great opportunity for me also to learn, because I have some assumptions that the current demand is not only related to the typical growth of the companies and demand. It's simply coming also from other different reasons. And I don't know, Martin, you can maybe comment on this. What you can observe from Europe versus rest of the world perspective with regards to the talent pool?
Thank you for the question. It's a pleasure to be back in person. I think we all breathe a sigh of relief to have the opportunity to meet again. I think if you look at demand, you also have to look at the supply side, because we're talking about demand for new digital skills, which is a key item here, and discussion about hybrid work. So if you look at what's happened in the past year, is basically normally when you look at talent development and recruitment, there's a dance going around of people filling seats, and that completely stopped last year. So nobody wanted to move, and I talk primarily from a shared service perspective, so I work with a lot of shared service organizations, and from March onwards, nobody wanted to move, and attrition fell to near zero. So now we are experiencing to some degree an element of catch-up to that element. Everybody does reluctantly start to move again, and so volume is increasing and demand's increasing, and for many leaders that I speak to, I see that there's wage costing increase, so people are asking for 30, 40, 50% more to fill roles. What exacerbates the situation is that many corporates decided to move more activities into shared services. Because one thing we know from economic crisis situation, that companies see shared service as a tried and tested way to reduce cost. So that means there's purely volume demand that is increasing. Secondly, it's not just about pure volume, it's also skill, which a lot of the discussions are going on in today's and yesterday's discussion. So it's volume, so there are more seats to fill, but it's also quality, so digital skills to be filled. And for many HR functions, which were traditionally set up for volume growth, now it's about skill development. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. If you look at it globally, the same is happening everywhere. So it's not exclusive to Poland, it's not exclusive to Eastern Europe, exactly the same is happening in Asia. Speaking to clients that I work with in India, exactly the same perspective that you see here. High demand of IT skills. Companies are outbidding each other for that scarce resource, and you see also salaries being offered 50 to 60% above what was normal maybe a year ago.
And do you believe that there is no other impact? Because I remember for me, when we observed the number of projects in my company, we observed that because of the kind of unstable situation in Asia especially, many projects moved to Europe because it was very stable and safe environment from the operations perspective. There's also other countries probably at the moment going through the storm, and it's also impacting Poland because in the positive way, of course, because we have more jobs. But what I can observe is that investors are not less willing to invest outside of the EU because we have very stable and predictable ecosystem of the law, taxes, and so on. The taxes probably is a different subject we can touch on, but the law is quite stable. So can you also observe the same things in your organizations, like maybe it's the changes of directions in the projects, moving from A to B location because you have to do it now and you cannot do it in different place?
Yeah, I can add some on that because we are a nearshore business. We are a global business, and then we are doing our nearshore for Europe from here. And all the time people are talking about moving business to India, or we were having some operations out of Philippines. But now a lot of things are coming back to Poland. Like from 80, we are already 125 in the last 3 months, and that's a 50% jump for us. And also the thing is like, we were working only with European-based projects. So, the approach or the thought process was different. But now there are a lot of new business coming from US, and they are ready to do it from Poland, right? So they were ready to even extend their cost a little bit if the talent is there and then if the opportunity is there. Plus they also look at this not just from the cost angle, but also from the time zone, halfway you're there and then you will be able to. So nearshore is picking up really a lot. In fact, actually, that's how our Mexico business is also picking up. But for Poland, yeah, the attraction is very, very high. And the other thing is also a lot of restrictions have changed from the client perspective because people are saying that they want people to be in their office because of security, because of a lot of things. But now with almost 18 months, they worked remote. They came up with their own solutions, much more on the security front in their technology. So we were able to do it from our office. So that way, yes, a lot of opportunities are coming this side. Good news.
Great, absolutely. I have a follow-up question to that one. Back, Agnieszka, from your perspective, how does it look like?
Quite similarly, and we are actually benefiting from the fact that there are some limitations in finding the qualified workforce in Western Europe. So there is more and more requests coming, hey, can we open this position in Poland? And we actually don't talk about any more transactional roles or judgmental processes, but really experts, key users, process owners. So those kind of topics start coming towards Poland after the pandemic.
And now maybe moving a bit to the cities and to Katowice. I will switch to Polish to ask the question. Obserwuję również to, że
I've been observing
bardzo zmienia się podejście,
that what has been changing a lot is cities' approach to talent. The companies that at the same time are recruiting in any place, they would actually go anywhere to attract employees. My question is how this situation has impacted Katowice. Have you seen any additional demand for talent in your city? Welcome everybody. Hello, I'm very happy that we can meet this way. I know that many months ago, a year ago, practically nothing happened. Then some attempts were made to organize hybrid meetings where we would have many more panelists on the panel than actual participants. And today we are finally meeting in this classical way with the panelists and participants. I think that we all appreciate it. As for the talents, I think the information that we've gathered over a day and a half confirm
że w sektorze nowoczesnych usług biznesowych
feel
taka całkowita
about
ilość pracy do wykonania będzie rosła.
modern state-of-the-art business sectors. We can see that there is a growing demand for talent. We are not only going to speak about relocations, but also about new investment ideas, that we are going to focus on growth. Following ABSL data, around 70% of sector companies plan to increase headcount. And these are the data that show that there is need for more. We can now juxtapose it with the changes that have been generated to stay here for good by the pandemic. How things are going to turn up, we will see, because it is not so much about work organization or changes in the way work is organized, but we are talking here about sociology of working. Following the data that, again, I obtained here, which shows how careful a listener I am, over 80% of companies studied by one of the companies providing HR advisory, so that was a multi-brand study, claim that they are ready to work remotely, to work from home. At the same time, 70% claim that they would like to spend at least one day a week in the office. How is it going to work? In the end, it is hard to predict. What about the role of the cities in this situation? What should we concentrate on as cities? Today in the morning, we had a very interesting meeting in Gdynia with the Deputy Minister for Finance responsible for the preparation of attempts, financial assumptions of the Polish order. When we talked about the future financial situation of self-governments. So far, self-governments have pursued multi-annual pro-developmental investment policies. In order for this to be possible, we need to have certainty and be able to predict the situation in terms of the volume of resources that are going to be available. As of today, we have no certainty whatsoever about the availability of resources in the future. What we can be certain of is our dialogue with the investors on what can be planned on a long-term basis. Of course, in what I said, there is a pessimistic note, but we've always been able to meet all sorts of challenges, problems, and I think that this situation is no different in this respect. But probably we will have to concentrate much more on preparing such solutions that are not necessarily strictly dedicated to the employees of the sector, modern business services, but that are of a more universal nature. We have heard here that self-governments or the cities used to neglect in their plans of sustainable growth a group of citizens or a group of employees that are not fresh graduates of universities, so to speak, but who have not established their families, who have no permanent residence, so people between 27 and 33. And I think that it is for this group that we should prepare solutions that are of a universal character, so taking into account the quality of life, possibility of spending their free time in an interesting way. Those basic instruments that are decisive for one's choice of the place of residence are comparable, but what starts being important for people is what used to be of secondary importance, namely, what can I do for myself after work, in my free time? And I think that here we are going to see an avalanche of ideas on the part of self-governments, because this is the market of the employee, and I know that you as managers of companies employing people can sense that really strongly. We feel that too, and we will try to help. I will extend this question because, again, this is something that is of importance to me as a citizen of Krakow and probably there are representatives of other Polish cities here. What we've been observing is a completely different lifestyle of the employees. They work differently, they benefit from city offer differently. So do you plan as an organized city to bring about some changes concerning the style of life and working? Katowice for the last 10, 12 years have been through a very consistent, thorough transformation. If you had been asked 10 years ago what you associated Katowice with, you'd have said heavy industry, something that is passé, dirty air. Now we have about 30,000 employees in the sector. So it's 1/10 of the jobs that are ascribed to the sector that used to generate pollution and so on. Everyday services is the leading sector. The one I'm talking about now is second in terms of the volume, and we will try to do our best to develop the sector of modern business services. How are we changing as a city? Well, what we are dealing with is a controlled difference of opinions, as I'd put it. There's a bit of self-criticism when I say that sometimes public authorities, self-governments believe they know something better. It is easier then for us, or it seems as easier for us to work and achieve certain goals faster. The issue of citizens' participation, of a dialogue, of citizens' participation in the this decision-making process is gaining in importance, and for us, the sector of modern business services with its employees, the 30,000 employees, those being citizens of our cities, is something that we treat as something important, not only for us, but for a large part of the community. In this way, we create a new class in a way. This social group differs across different cities. Some cities have much more experience in it. Katowice is a city that is 150 years old. We would like to make the most of this creative differences of opinions on the principles of the city to be generated and to come from this part of the citizens. We would like to foster this constructive dialogue, searching for solutions and for the ways of distributing public resources, always in the context of their shortages, because obviously we would always like to do more than we can afford to, finance-wise mostly. So it is about optimizing the life in the city with the participation of the citizens. That is why every month we can see the voice of the citizens gaining in strength. Initially, it was through your companies, through the managers, getting in touch with the city authorities, that we got access to the needs, that something should be done with, for example, bus connections and so on. But this is not the case anymore. Now, we have a permanent, continuous online contact with you, your companies, and we get feedback onto what should be done. Of course, it is difficult. This is something that requires long-term effort, but this is the only way, really, for us to operate if we want to see long-term results.
Well, I was asking this question for the important reason from my perspective. When thinking about the company sector, I would also encourage you to talk during your chapter meetings with the city hall representatives, because the way how my team, probably your teams as well, operates at the moment completely changed. And they have very different needs, and we want to be successful to retain talent in the cities. Near to the offices, we have to work with the cities to make sure that the environment is simply changing as well. Plus, what I think is also very important, I would assume there will be impact on the taxes and revenue for the cities, because there's less people traveling, less people using the services, using the cafeterias and so on, at least at the moment. And this also, I think, is leading me to the question about the new ways of working. I will just come back to the sustainability, I promise, but I think it's the pre-work to this question. Because what I can observe is simply that we have at the moment massive shift, to the new ways of working and also new capabilities needed. And my question is, and maybe I will assume that we are ready to work in the global environment completely remotely. But what is your point of view on this subject? We talk about culture, we talk about the different skills needed.
Okay, I can start again. The new ways of working, actually it's a new normal, and the outlook of the organization versus the employees, the connect that we are talking about has completely changed. And if I bring a little perspective on the culture as well, because, who can be other than me working for a company where I'm the only person outside Poland. So, I'm not sure how many of you have read this book on culture map. So I used to map every time, okay, how Poland thinks, how India thinks, how Asia thinks, how Europe thinks. Now I've thrown that book. Yeah. So because I can't stick on to one culture, I can't stick on to one way of working, because the mantra or the tagline for every organization is that one size will not fit all. Yeah, so I can't come up with benefits, I can't come up with the thought process that will fit in one, because now I have 2 people working from Ukraine, 1 person working from Belarus, and then I have some candidates who are lined up in Nigeria. So can I really talk about a Poland way of working or an Indian way of working or one particular way of working, right? So the organization needs to be much more flexible and much more open. Communication plays a very, very important role, like how much we are assertive in terms of helping them. Especially we are in the phase where we are training a lot of managers, because they are the organization for that individual, right? So they are the organization, they will be able to communicate what we want to communicate, and bring them in some common culture will be a challenge forever. And I don't think so there's going to be any new thing where having 100% back in office is going to be possible at all. So we are prepared for this, and we need to be prepared. We don't have a choice. And we need to have this global citizenship mindset where anybody can work from anywhere. And if you have the right information about their role, right job descriptions, right responsibilities, and enabling them with right technology and training, I think they'll be able to deliver.
I agree with your point. So I think some companies will be more comfortable with this remote or hybrid working kind of model. And I think that's actually the crucial point in the future. Will managers change? Because now we're forced to. So some companies, some managers would love to get their people back in the office. We see that in financial services, where companies already said, please come back to the office in New York and London, etc. So we're thinking about, we saw some presentations yesterday as well about the new office and how we're going to go in there maybe 2 or 3 days a week. The crucial point is how managers will start to manage the workforce. So if you manage by attendance and you want people 9 to 5, then people will eventually flock back to the office. If you manage by outcome and you're comfortable with, like Hariharan says, you have people in Nigeria, Ukraine, everywhere. If you're comfortable with managing in that way, then this kind of hybrid model that we now see as the future will indeed work. But I do think that, and some experience in the past as well with companies like IBM, who were one of the first to actually trial this kind of remote and hybrid working model. They came back from it at some point, not completely. But I think that will be the crucial difference for companies that are really successful in managing their workforce globally, people regardless of where they sit, or that we revert back to the old ways of working and saying, I want my people in the office 9 to 5, because then I can see what they do. And obviously, I would say obviously, it's an illusion of control, because maybe people are sitting behind their desk, behind a computer, and actually playing computer games instead of working.
I think the new normal, that's going to be a buzzword from this conference. So, yes, there is a lot of changes. That the hybrid model that you mentioned, I think that this is the new normal. If you talk about coming back to the office 9 to 5, I guess we are all clear this is not going to happen. This is not how we want to manage the teams. And indeed, currently, the biggest challenge is indeed in front of the managers and the team leaders, because they need to learn a lot how to manage the team mostly remotely or in a hybrid model, and this is a completely different management style. And also yesterday during one of the panels, there was also discussed that this is enough to change the leadership model, but this is not enough. This is not a simple story. This is a huge challenge which we're going to have in front of our management and leadership teams this year and next year before we really switch to this new normal.
But can you provide any examples, because I would like to listen, also learn, how you do it, simply? You mentioned the global citizenship. How you build such an environment to be ready? Because for me, I have at the moment 100 plus positions open to fill only for the new customers. And we cannot fill them, we cannot earn money. Simply, we cannot provide predictable offer to the customers at the moment because we cannot find talent. So of course we go abroad. But the challenge is exactly like you said, it's different culture, different association with the company and brand. And I believe that at the moment, it's funny because probably your employer very often is the FedEx guy who delivers the laptop from A company and collects the laptop from the B company. And tomorrow we work simply from the same desk, same environment, the same view outside the window for the new company. So how you do it? How you build this leadership skills? How you build this awareness about the different cultures, which is very important, I guess.
Okay, that's where I said the line managers play a very important role because they are the point of contact from a day-to-day work perspective, right? So taking them to a training room and then training them for 24 hours, 36 hours on culture or on the way of working is not going to help anymore. But how do we trust them? How do we make them feel that we trust them? Because the factor of trust is actually much more now, and we need to give lot of autonomy on the way they work, and then flexibility on the way they work, like what they were talking about. 9 to 5 will not work anymore. Then if you're talking about 9 to 5, then please don't mind if they close the laptop by 5, right? So if we don't want that, then don't expect them to be at 9. And also our understanding in terms of what kind of background they are coming from and how we can connect with them at the different levels, whether it's a simple coffee meet or whether it's an opportunity for them to do some presentation, share some knowledge. Because end of the day, this is my observation in the last 18, 19 years of my industry experience, is that every human being wants to be treated special. Okay, and they want that limelight, they want to be special, they want to be considered, they want to be recognized. So if you have those right channels at the right intervals, overdoing is also a problem, but if you do it at the right intervals, I think wherever they are, you will be able to connect. From a culture angle, it is a challenge, Sebastian. I wouldn't say it is easy, and especially not just preparing the new guys, but also preparing the existing guys to accept people as they are, and it's becoming a big challenge for us. I won't say it's an easy cake, and we are having, I'm sure a lot of similar industries are having some challenges where our existing people, are they really prepared to trust people without even meeting them? Even not once they are meeting, the interviews, everything is going to be online, and they don't know what they are, what kind of expressions, what kind of body language, especially even sometimes when I'm doing this communication training program, I'm removing slides like, your body language, your posture, gesture, within that small Zoom tile, how much you can express, right? So, now I'm talking about voice modulation, stress, pause. The slides are changing in the sense the approach is changing, and the outlook towards communication and connect is changing, I would say.
I think we've said a few things now around management style. I think what also needs to change is the way we communicate internally, because indeed we're sitting in that small Zoom box. But one of the purposes of being in the office is that it facilitates a lot of informal communication, and that is no longer happening. So as one of my clients said, you need to make the informal formal by virtual coffee breaks and things like that, which a lot of companies have done, different rules about how you engage in an online environment, but also actually more formal communication, which does lead to more email traffic in organizations. Because again, one of the things why people come into the office, because it provides them, it doesn't only provide the manager visibility of the employee, but employees also have anxiety that if I'm not in the office in front of my manager, I might miss out on promotion opportunities. So that's one of the reasons why people will want to come back. And it also leads to discussions about then the performance and appraisal process needs to be more transparent. So you can say, look, it doesn't matter if you work 12 hours away from me. We will still give you the career opportunities, and therefore we have to do away with the idea of remote working, because remote is remote, it's far away from the office. It is truly a globally distributed workforce, and it really doesn't matter where you sit. And that last part is something we have to convince our employees of, that is actually true.
I'm trying to find answers for this thing, because for me it's simply the business are people, simply. And I cannot deliver anything as a company to our customers without the right people, means also with the right skill set. And I think someone mentioned, I don't know, what you observe in the market. At the moment, tech experts simply expect at least 30% more, at least. Yeah, so you want to move them around. If you want to have the better salary, learn Java development, and you're a rich person. And in the same time, there's the new legislation. I think it was the question from the Mentimeter about the new order, the new Polish order. I don't know if you observe this situation and how this will potentially influence your businesses. Do you have any predictions? Or cities?
As I said before, right now, we are trying to learn as much as possible what are the final assumptions of this Polish new order. It has been changing. At the very beginning, it was estimated as a loss of income for local authorities. It was 150 billion zloty. The government was saying about around 80 billion. Right now, after a certain adjustment, we speak more or less common language, and it's 120 billion. As for the expenditure of local authority, which is 300 billion a year, then it means that it's 5-7% loss of income. This is supposed to be compensated, but how this is going to happen, whether a certain fixed algorithm or perhaps more discretionary, it's not yet decided. It seems that 5-7% is not much, but when we talk about the budgets of the cities, and they include fixed expenditure for transport, for social care, education, lighting, cleaning, waste disposal, so these free so-called resources are not so many. Of course, we can bear with the situation 1 year or two, but if these assumptions and these numbers are going to be confirmed, then we might face, on a longer run, 7-5 years, difficulties for smaller local authorities, and this may translate into the situation that I mentioned at the very beginning, the offer that we can prepare for our inhabitants, for the employees of modern business sectors, as for the quality of life. Ways of spending free time. There are many questions in this respect. We don't know what the final shape of legislation is going to look like. We have the first reading in the Parliament today. The government participated in the consultancy works. It is still rather changing, so we need to wait for the final version. So on the one hand, the increase of free amount exempt from tax, so we will have more resources in our wallets, but 2 + 2 must equal 4. If you add to one group, then you need to deduct from somewhere. We can't just print money and then what? Through bonds shift these issues to further generations, so to say. So it's all ahead of us. No doubt, we have good economic situation at this moment. We can see that. We can observe that in the city economy. The investments are significant. In our city, this is particularly significant, and the investors want to invest. This is very good, but when we look from the longer perspective, we need to be cautious. We don't want to be pessimists, of course, because something wrong is happening. But if we want to manage responsibly our cities, we need to be cautious and need to be realists. The first 2 years of this new deal, if this is enforced, will help us answer a question: what are the real consequences compared to the activities of the local government? What it looks like compared to business? I think in business we will see that.
Sure, we have the question.
Fastest.
Can we just provide the microphone? And can we move to the next question, please, on the Menti?
It's very hard to disagree with what you said about new age for leadership, new ways of communication. And we spend a lot of time, now talking about local politics. I'm looking forward what will happen with the Polski Ład. But globalization, the global workforce, what's your view on the situation that our rich Java developer now sitting and earning in Poland, now he will have an opportunity to be rich Java developer sitting in Poland and working for business in Germany, States, Norway, doesn't matter where. So will not change. What do you think? Will it change the way how we build the businesses? Will it impact our sector itself? Because that's a little bit thing that I'm slightly worried about, with this globalization of workforce. So how we approach this, it will be massive shift for us. What do you think? It's like a probably open question about it. What do you think?
It's like give it a try first. I think there may be there's an element obviously of new roles that are coming in, the digital skills that we've been talking about. I think what also is perhaps looming in the back of your mind is if you can move this to Poland and we're truly coming global, why can't we move it to anywhere in the world, right? So that I think is also something to consider. We've also seen already from the examples here that some companies are repatriating certain roles where they feel that it's too far away. So the argument will no longer be around, you say, labor cost and skill. It's also how does it fit in the global working pattern. So if you think about agile ways of working, some of these roles, it just doesn't work if you take it to the other side of the globe. So you get a globally distributed workforce model where skills becomes the most important question, but also the collaboration model. And sometimes it will be, well, it fits if we take it to, far, far away. And sometimes, no, I need to have close collaboration, not physically in the office, because that argument we know is now out of the window. But I do need to have it over a short, say, time zone difference. And therefore, they're roles that fit very well in Eastern Europe. Is that the elephant in the room?
Yeah. And that also means that, the competition on the talent market won't be only local, we'll be just competing worldwide. And that's makes this challenge even bigger, yeah?
I think that's the elephant in the room to some degree, but multinational companies, and I know some that have truly globalized business models are already doing this. So many big corporates actually operate as companies with a corporate center in their home country with overseas affiliates. But there are multinationals that truly globalize their workforce. And to the point that Agnieszka was making as well, you have process owners, etc., that can also now be roles that you move to a center here. And the whole notion of offshoring, which is actually a terrible word, we should get rid of as well.
Can I also ask the question, how many of you have the tech organizations or tech departments in your teams, in your companies? Can you just raise the hand? So probably you can also comment on what we comment here, just in case if you wish, because I'm not sure about the finance, because I don't have the finance center. or any other functions, but this one is very hot. Harry, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just to add to what Marcin was saying, I'm not looking at it as a challenge, I'm only looking at it as an opportunity. Plus, I don't want to look at it on the extreme end, because I'm sure such conference would have happened before Y2K. Such conference would have happened after 2009 recession. But we always come up with solutions, and I'm looking very optimistic about it. It's just that probably we will not go to extremes of having everybody remote or having everybody back in office and managing talent locally. But I think we will be coming halfway. And we need to come up with innovative solutions to have both halfway, whether we can have people at our office and then also globally. Yeah, and also from a tech perspective, we also have, and we are also seeing this trend that probably about 4 to 8, 9 years of experience are the guys who are ready to take such risk, where working for a company short term, 1 year, 6 months, or whatever it may be, earn big money. But whereas if you see, when people looking at a longer career growth, people who are working as leaders, who are managers, who would like to stick on to some local organizations because they want to work in that particular sector on a long-term basis. So it's also a combination of whom we are attracting, at what level we are attracting. At leadership level, I'm not really sure whether that trend will be really helpful, but at developers level, yes, it's a threat. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether we have still some time, but I wanted to explore a little bit both of those questions. First, on the Polski Ład, what we've been seeing actually in my company, my former company, is that people actually react to Polski Ład already, and they are handing in their notices and taking jobs with agencies that allow them contracts, and therefore that minimizes the impact of the Polski Ład on them. And this is already happening to a small extent, and the question that I have in my mind is how fast that will go. As for now, we have individual cases, but is this a trend, and how fast will be that trend? And of course, the most talented people and with the most rare skills take those opportunities, so it's a loss. Now, on those global trends, this is also something that we are seeing, that companies do reach out for our workforce, like my colleague predecessor said, and they don't have a need to establish an address or a company in Poland. It might be even just an address, administrative address, or even not that much. I think the companies are exploring the ways of how administratively and legally they can build a framework to offer people from Poland very attractive competitive salaries, still giving them the cost advantage from their side, but really reach out also to the talent pool, well-educated and well-trained. And again, this is something that we are seeing punctually. How big is that trend and how fast it will be happening?
Maybe I could also pick up, because I think there's some next question on the Menti about the trends. I can tell you that I spent, I think, 3 months analyzing the global economy situation and trying to connect dots together with my friends from Gartner. And what we can observe is simply depends also what is your origin of the country. Like if you have the US capital, you have maybe English capital in your companies, depends. But if you see the US, there is a few things on the horizon. One is very unstable situation in Ukraine, at least in Europe, impacting Poland. Ukraine and Belarus, and for many companies, those countries are already on the blacklist, so you cannot hire there. So we have 2 big markets, especially Ukraine for the tech market is massive. It's a lot of people, very skilled people, very valuable, and they're moving simply operations from Ukraine to Poland. This is one impact. B, at the moment, when you can observe Asia especially, you see India, you see Malaysia, probably Philippines as well, there's not always good infrastructure to run remote business. So then companies, they decide, okay, we cannot afford, and it's unpredictable because we expect the 3rd wave, the 4th wave, the 5th wave. So what countries are more resilient from the perspective of the infrastructure? People will be able to deliver the results. To your point, to your question, the salary, I would expect the country, the Poland was usually very attractive from the perspective of a bit lower costs or lower costs, now medium costs. And it'll be not a gameplay for those trying to move forward with the digital transformations in the future. I'm talking about tech because I'm from this industry, but you have any other observations, jump in and comment. And it simply will be not about the, what is the cost of the project, is simply where I can find talent to deliver the results. And you have to adapt as a business as well, because I already hear that people are working on the Saudi Arabia rates in Poland, because Saudi Arabia said, okay, we'll pay any money, so our money, to any location to just get the results. So the workforce at the moment, I think the trends are that, at least for tech, there will be no more budget play or cost play. People will be exploring other options. If EU will decide also to flex on the tax limitations, which are also driven by countries, of course, because people want, of course, work from many other countries in Europe. Cities, in the same time, from this perspective, will be impacted, in my opinion, because we'll be moving out to other locations, to better locations from their perspective. So I think a revolution is around the corner, and I think that simply the trend is showing that people will be dictating, so our employees, how the future will look like, simply. And you have to or align, agree, or probably lost some talents. Be moving. Maybe after 2-3 years, they'll be coming back. There was important aspect mentioned in the previous panel, innovation, because I think this one, is suffering a lot doing remotely. This is my observation. Also, I have colleagues in the Spotify, Apple. We talk a lot about how they feel about the remote environment, and simply said, our innovation dropped by 30% working remotely, and we cannot afford this simply because we are still kind of a startup. We have to innovate and move forward. Otherwise, the big players like Apple Music will simply take over our business and move again, and will be much more important. And then the Polish one, I just only the last comment because I think it is absolutely unpredictable. I cannot tell you what will happen. But the last Thursday, I think, was published the second version of the legislation, which is for the companies like ours is worse than before, based on our knowledge. So I asked ABSL to maybe prepare something like calculator when you can go and check if, for example, this is my salary, what potentially does it mean to me as an employee or employer? Yes, what does it mean? At least to predict, because I cannot tell you what will be impact on my salary, for example. Plus on the taxes for the companies as well. And this one is even more worrying because there's much bigger impact than before on the companies. And then for our businesses, and when we talk about the talent, we talk about the challenge, the multicultural environment. Now the new legislation coming, the new costs, the people working from everywhere for the better money. I think you mentioned the moving to the contracting work, yes, which at the moment is the most challenging aspect because it's very challenging to explain someone is better to work on the employment contract because they can simply earn more money working for the contracting company. So my question is, can you still deliver your businesses in the future? Do you believe you are ready to meet these challenges?
Won't be easy. I mean, being serious, all the things that you named, we need to take into consideration. And even if we talk about Polish WAT, you said the question's going to be difficult during this panel. I didn't expect them to be so difficult because we actually don't know. So we are also waiting for the new version. But we know that that's going to have a huge impact on our employees, especially those on the higher expert positions. So indeed, we need to take it into consideration and think whether that's the costs we're going to take on us if we want to retain those talents in the organization. If we are still able to deliver the business, yes, we are, because I believe that our businesses are well settled. We just need to adjust to what is going on, and we've been already few difficult periods like this, so I guess we are used to that. I mean, the dynamics will be there, certainly.
Harry, what about you?
I wouldn't say we are completely prepared for it yet, and completely compensating with whenever the legal things changes or financial budgeting things changes on the tax. I think it will be too much for the organization because obviously the business model doesn't change overnight. And now that we are also getting a lot of business from on-site to near-shore kind of a thing, obviously the client is also looking at the cost. And for us, the priority in the market is now to win business. vis-a-vis your competition, right? So we also compromise on some margins, some targets, and then get new clients, get new logos to the organization. But at the same time, we will not be able to completely ignore it because we want to retain the key talent. We want to retain the high performers. So especially when there are things that are going to happen that way, we need to come again halfway. I hope this is not quoted to my CFO, but yeah, we are planning to do something here and there to manage it, but exactly managing their net salary, what they were getting, and then taking the remaining cost on the organization is not doable. And it's not sustainable because we don't know next year what's new waiting. Yeah, so.
But there is also this element of innovation you mentioned, because the fact that the work going to be coming to Poland, that's obvious, and that's also coming from the latest surveys, because the Western Europe is also struggling with a lack of qualified resources. That's why they are looking to Poland and to the shared services organizations to fill in the vacancies. The innovations, and I don't know what's your experience, but talking to some of my peers, over the pandemic, we are able to manage the operations. So transactional part, rule-based processes, we are quite good with that. And with the monitoring and KPIs being implemented, basically this is easy to be managed remotely. But if we talk about the innovations, the personal experience I have is that over the 12 months, we very dramatically stopped with all kind of innovations. And this is also because it's very difficult to stimulate this innovation climate remotely. So the brainstorm over Teams is like, a storm in a glass of water. And now when we start having people back in the office, limited time, but this 1 or 2 days when they are coming to the office, they are actually using for the meetings, for the stimulating conversations, for brainstorming, thinking how we can do things in a different way. And I believe that's working.
Yes, we have one more question. We have 2 minutes left. Hi, Gabi.
Hi, Sebastian. Hi, everybody. Gabriela Staniakova, Kimberly Clark in Krakow. I think we didn't talk about that, but how do you talk about this agile and flexible environment? I believe, Martin, you talk about that as well. I am a woman, so we didn't touch on how flexible we need to think about and be prepared for women, workforce as well. Yeah, so I would like to ask you, and I understand the challenge on the tech, but I think, in tech environment also women are raising, I'm not talking about learning Jabra for my career going forward. But I think, what we need to also understand, all these waves are impacting a lot this female environment, right? So I would like to hear whether you are thinking about that type of program for women, in your workforce as well.
Maybe if I can pick it up, because we have latest experience, and actually this is one of the good consequences of the pandemic that our company opened for those kind of things. We start posting our job ads via the job portal, which is for women who are on the maternity leave or they want to go back to after the maternity leave, even part-time. We made a try, and we already have 3 ladies who are starting. Well, 1 person started, 2 are starting part-time, fully remote. And they just don't want to go back yet full-time to work because of the maternity and kids they have. So I think that in a way, the pandemic opened the companies for those kind of solutions. So let's see how that's going to work.
To add to that, I would say that D&I is a focus for all the organization now. From a diversity or from an inclusivity perspective, this gender diversity plays a very important role. We are having some challenges. I won't say it is easy, because it is not just for the organization, but it is also families, for them to accept this model of working, women sitting and working there, and now kids are at home and all the time, especially at least in Poland, schools have started. In Europe, it has started. But if you look at Asian countries, if I look at India as an example, I don't know whether families are really prepared for it, where a husband is working one side and then wife is working on the other side, and kid is sitting in between and taking classes online. So it is a big challenge for us. But like what Agnieszka said, we are also trying for this part-time opportunities, and then career break, giving opportunities for people who are coming back from career break is helpful.
I think the challenge is about growing women, because having flexible and 4 hours, part-time, remotely and so on, but what about growing women, right? Because when women need to juggle between the family and the work and everything, yes, I'm flexible because I'm at home, but what about growing? Naturally women would not feel so encouraged to apply for higher position, right? So I understand diversity and inclusion, targets are there and so on, but I think, it needs to be like a very specific focus to help women to grow in the leadership position, because they might not feel so encouraged in the current environment because they don't know what can happen, right? Maybe they will need to be more moms than leaders, right? So, that's, I guess, that's what I see as a challenge nowadays.
I couldn't agree more. I think when we think diversity and inclusion, we jump very quickly to flexible working and arrangements to accommodate traditional role patterns. But it's a bit of a theme, but what's said here, I think there's also an element of addressing biases of managers to say, if you do flexible working, if you take a period of time of work and you come back, there's an opportunity to grow again. So there are biases in managers that need to be addressed as well to offer equal opportunity to anybody in the workforce, regardless of how they develop throughout their career, and also factor in that not everybody is as vocal about their career development needs as by gender, effectively. So that's exactly your point. So it's something to address with managerial bias training, which is sometimes effective, sometimes not. But that's development journey, real challenge, I think, here.
And it is okay, I will pause here, because we have, I think, lunch ahead of us, and we can discuss it, Gabi, during the networking part of the next session. Many thanks for coming, my distinguished panelists. It was a very interesting conversation. Different perspectives, different diversities, like different businesses and so on, different backgrounds. Many thanks for the questions, for the comings, for our panel. Thank you very much, and see you soon under the tent.
Thank you.
Resilience, maturity, talents, growth, innovation. But change made us stronger. This all made us sustainable. ABSL Summit. Beyond tomorrow. Building a sustainable future.